Greetings, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever it may be for wherever you're joining us from today. The chat is open if you feel like throwing a name and where you're joining from. I see we've got a couple people that have popped in there. It'd be great to hear where you're joining us from today. Also, if you've ever worked with focus group data or if you're planning on working with focus group data, that would be interesting to see too, just to kind of get a sense of the audience today. My name again is Joel Drevlo. I'm really happy to be here to talk about this topic on focus group analysis. Um, Focus group data, the way that it gets imported and worked with in MaxQDA poses some interesting opportunities for how you can actually work with the data, which I find kind of fun. Just the ways that you can kind of manipulate how the data looks. Focus groups just as a form of data are interesting as well too. I've tried to come up with an interesting sample data. I played around with ChatGPT to generate some sillier transcripts for today. So hopefully that will maybe you'll get a little chuckle out of that. All right. So let's go ahead and jump right into things. I'm going to start my timer here so I stay on track. Just to give you a little bit, just a little bit more on the background, I just wanted to let you know sort of where I'm coming from, sort of what my experience as a researcher is. Of course, I'm a certified trainer now, so I do a lot of training, webinars like this, private consultations with folks as well, graduate students. I do a lot of working with methods classes as well, teaching the software component of that. Um, my background, really the only thing I want to say there is that I primarily started working with MaxQDA in program evaluation. So that's kind of my context where I'm coming from. So I worked at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and we were using MaxQDA to evaluate the educational programming that we did across the state. So looking at where we meeting our educational goals, were we reaching the audiences that we intended to, where could we reach more diverse or expanded audiences, those kinds of things. So MaxQDA was a really great tool for that to analyze the data. And it had a nice relationship with how we planned as well, because we were able to source some of the planning component for new educational programs, things like that directly from the analysis that we had done. I'm based out of the Boston area. It's a gorgeous day here. It's almost tough to be inside. It's so gorgeous outside. But if you want to get in touch with me, my email is right here, joel.drevlo@iqdas.com. Feel free to send me an email about this session or any question you might have about qualitative data analysis or MaxQDA. I love hearing from folks after these sessions. So let's jump right into the topic at hand today. I want to give you just a sense of the outline, what we're going to be talking about. First thing I want to discuss is sort of the transcript format. This is important when you're working with focus group data. It has to be structured in a certain way. It's fairly straightforward. I don't think it's going to blow your mind. It's not a terribly complicated process, but I want to show you what that looks like so you get a good sense of it. There's also a particular import process that you'll want to use when you're working with focus group data, so we'll take a look at that as well. There are some really great overview functions when working with focus group data that I think can be a helpful way to sort of orient yourself with what your data looks like as you get started. So we'll talk about that, specifically looking at colors, variables, contributions, and sort of ways that you can segment this a little bit, especially if you want to remove moderator contributions out of the mix. So we'll take a look at how you can do that. I'm going to take you through some preliminary coding and annotation. So I'm just going to show you a way that you could approach your focus groups. And this is not like you have to do it this way. This is just an example to show you a way that you could start to begin to process this. This technique I'm going to show you would work with just single person interview data as well, if you had a scripted interview. But the idea is that you kind of want to piece up the transcript. You want to slice it up a little bit. So we'll show you how that works. I'm going to show you, once you've done that, how you can then view that data in the segment matrix viewer, which I think is a really powerful tool in MaxQDA. A kind of theme for most of my sessions, if you've been in any of my other sessions across MaxDays, has been MaxQDA as a workspace, MaxQDA as a viewing space. So I'm going to harp on that again today about how the specific tools, coding processes, those kinds of things will allow you to actually physically view your data in different ways. And I think thinking of it in such a literal way can sometimes remove maybe a little bit of the paralysis of, oh, there's so many functions, which one do I use? you think about it in a very physical context, a very specific task-oriented way, sometimes it helps you identify the functions that you need to be able to display the data that you want to show in a certain manner. I am going to get into a little bit of the AI-assisted preliminary analysis. So once we piece up that data and take a look at it, I want to show you some of the things that you could do initially with AI, especially looking particularly at some of the summarizations as well as the suggestions. So that's kind of the goal for today. We do have the Q&A open, so anytime you have questions, please drop those in there and I'll get those at the end. But I think that is it for my slides. The rest of this is going to be done in MaxQDA. Here's again my contact information. I'll pull this up at the end too, so you can see this again. Happy to meet up with you on LinkedIn or field any emails that you might have. All right, so let's take a look at this transcript. So I generated a transcript. I was playing around with ChatGPT and I was just kind of curious about really what it could do. And so I asked it for some ideas, some silly ideas for focus group transcripts. The one of them that came up was, and actually I'll pull up the memo I had a summary generated for this as well. This focus group discussion centers around designing the ultimate henchman uniform for villains. The participants included Darth Vader, the Joker, Magneto, Loki, Sauron, and the newly introduced Mysteria, engaged in a lively debate, sharing unique perspectives on various aspects of uniform design. So this is a silly topic, but it's functional. The text is exactly what we need here. Thing in the news here too recently. If you're a fan of Star Wars and those things, James Earl Jones, of course, passed away just recently. So thinking of sort of him in this discussion a little bit today. As we take a look at this transcript, so here's kind of the basic topic for this. I want to show you as we sort of go back to our outline here, looking at the idea of transcript format. I want to just give you a sense of this. So let me open up the Word document. And typically when you're working with focus group transcripts, the easiest format to use is going to be a Word document or some kind of text, rich text file or text document, but typically a Word document. So here's sort of the structure that you want. And there's just a couple of things I want to point out. The first is that you'll need some kind of name, right? So this could be anonymized if you wanted to, speaker one, speaker two. This could be the actual name, first name, last name, however you want to format it in your transcript. You'll need a colon, right? A colon, then whatever text is contributed. And at the end, there needs to be a line break. And if I turn on the formatting here so you can see, you'll notice right here, I've got this hard line break. This is what allows MaxQDA's sort of pre-processing to give you the actual speaker codes, right? To actually bring in these codes that you see here in the focus group, right? So I've got the actual speakers in addition to the moderator, right? So you'll need that in your transcript. Typically, that's not an issue. Sometimes if you have a colon within a piece of text, that can throw things off. But as long as there's not a line break sort of directly following that, it's usually not an issue. The advice I would give you is just before you get started heavily in your work, make sure that you run through that import to see that it has been imported properly, because you don't want to do a whole bunch of work and then have to, use some export functions to transfer. It can just get to be a mess. So make sure that you get things imported properly before you start to do a whole bunch of analysis. Just takes a second or two. If for some reason you imported and you use, for example, in the import options just as a transcript, and you don't then have the presence of these speakers. In fact, let me just show you what that would look like. So I'll go, actually, no, without timestamps. There's no timestamps in this. If I were to import that same focus group discussion as a transcript, you'll note it has none of those. It has none of those auto codes, right? If I go over to my focus group transcript, you'll see I have all the auto codes for the speakers. So it's not like it's wrong or anything, but the problem is I'm losing a lot of utility. The ability to activate particular speakers in conjunction with specific codes is really, really useful. It's a great way to easily slice up your data, and it takes that manual step out. If I were to do it just as the regular transcript, I would have to go through and manually code all these things, which is possible, but it's time and it's just time you don't need to spend. Note that there is a difference in icon here, right? A transcript versus a focus group transcript. But if you made the mistake of importing it as a transcript, you can convert this to a focus group transcript with this button here. I'm in the import options. It's this one way at the end, convert text to focus group transcript, convert display documents, and you'll see now I get a menu. I get a menu to pull in the various focus group speakers, right? And I can sort of fix my mistake there if I wanted to do that. But I'm going to show you real quickly. Let's actually just remove this one out of here so we don't confuse anybody. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new project real quick, just a blank project. And I'm going to walk you through the import process so you can see how this works. If I go to my import options and you see MaxQDA and a new project will default to that because that's the first thing you need to do is to get data. So I'm going to import, I almost made a mistake there, not transcripts, focus group transcripts. Now with or without timestamps, if you want to include audio or video, you can do that here. So you can actually connect the audio or the video with the text. And so what that would allow you to do is there'll be a little timestamp indicator, and you can click that, and it'll play the snippet of audio or video that's connected to that piece of text. So some people incorporate this in their analysis. They might actually just listen to the text while listen to the audio while they annotate the text or something like that. So if that's an aspect of how you want to do your analysis, you can certainly do that. My transcript does not have timestamps, so I'm going to ignore that, right? So you'll see here, I actually have a false positive here, enter a new character. This is actually not a speaker. So I'm just going to uncheck this so that that this doesn't get pulled in as a speaker. You'll note all of these different contributions. This is a good time to change colors, right? So let's change these colors. We can do Darth Vader as, let's see. It's not bringing up my color picking wheel. We'll just do this one as a dark color. I'm just going to pick some random colors here. It's good to differentiate these so that you can more easily sort of flow between the different speakers. You can always change this after the fact, but it's something you want to do initially. If you have false positives in here, you can always change the target field. I could attribute this to a particular speaker. So for example, if you had a typo, maybe somebody spelled Billy, B-I-L-L-Y, and then in another place it's transcribed as B-I-L-L-I-E, you could easily just change the target, and then you'll get the correct assignment there. But you want to take some time with this, make sure that it's imported correctly. So I'm going to import now, and you'll see I have my transcript appears in my document browser. And then over here in my document system, I have all these different speakers that are highlighted. And then in my code system, I have it duplicated as well. And there's a reason that it's in both, right? There's a reason that it's in both, because if I want, there's certain combinations of activation that will allow me to look at the data, in a certain way, in a certain manner. Right now, I don't have any of that sort of thematic coding done or structural coding, so it's not really possible to do that. But we're going to show you what you can do with that in a little bit here. I'm going to head back over to my original project file for today so I can keep my notes aligned, and I've got a little bit of analysis done here. All right, so one of the first things that you saw in terms of pre-processing this data, obviously MaxQDA brings this in as this transcript with this stuff. One of the first things that you can do, if I wanted, I could open up my document memo for this focus group. I can come down to my document summary and I can create a summarization from the AI assist. So I could get a quick summarization of the focus group, which does a pretty good job in getting the basic flow of the conversation, the main topics, and those kinds of things. A little bit on the sort of disposition of speakers and their interactions and that stuff as well. So that can be a good place to start. It's not going to do everything for you. The AI assist isn't there yet, but as I think, going back to Stefan Radiker's keynote yesterday, it's a good way to get into that familiarization. It's another way to look at the data rather than just reading it plainly. You're reading a summarization. So this can be a helpful way to familiarize yourself. So you can definitely give that a try. You can, again, access that also by just right-clicking and you get the AI assist options. There's also the opportunity to chat with this document. So if you wanted to ask specific questions, you could pull this up and you could start to ask things of the data as well. It's a little bit difficult for me to do that, to recommend that if you don't know much about the document yet. You know, you might want to start with a summary so you get a little bit more familiarization. I feel like the chat requires a little bit of knowledge before you want to get into that. All right, so we've got our data imported, and so we want to get a quick overview of things. To do this is just the right-click option. So I'm going to come into my document system. I see my focus group transcript. I'm going to right-click on this, and it's going to give me a whole list of options. The right-click option in MaxQDA is context specific, so it changes everywhere you right-click. If I right-click here in my document system, on sets, I get one list. On a document, I get one list. On my Documents tab, I get one list. In my document browser, I get another list, right? So the idea is if you're a newer user and you're exploring and you're trying to find a function, a lot of times you want to go in the direction that you're sort of aiming for and right click. That was a piece of advice that was shared very early on with me by Graham Hughes. So it's something I like to share with folks in webinars. If you're lost, you can usually go in the general direction and right click, and you'll hopefully find an option. But in this case, I want to use this overviews option. You'll see overviews. I have a whole bunch here that are available to me. You'll want to check these out. There's some cool stuff here to get sort of a quick snapshot of your project, but we're going to look at focus group speakers today. And so what this is going to do is this is going to bring up a table, and you'll see overview of focus group speakers. A couple of things I want to point out to you here. First of all, you have these various columns. You can, of course, select what columns that you want to see. This is the case in every table in MaxQDA. You can always select the columns that you want to see. Again, back to my theory of MaxQDA as a viewing space, as a workspace. Only see what you want to see, right? Other stuff is extraneous. It's diminishing your brain power. It's not necessary. So get it out of the way. We'll leave all this stuff on for now. A couple things I want to show you here. You'll note that the moderator is included in this. So if I look at my columns, I get percentage contributions, words, percentage of words, characters, percentage of characters. So the percentages are going to be calculated from the whole. And so it's going to calculate in the moderator's contributions. Maybe I want to not do it that way. I want to exclude the moderator. And so it's a simple process. What I do is I come into my document system. I'm going to activate all of my speakers, and I'm going to leave my moderator deactivated, and I'm going to filter, and you see now it is gone. So if I unfilter this, watch my percentages, right? Percentage of contributions, 10.53, and you'll see they change slightly up from 10.53 to 11.76, right? So I've excluded moderators' contributions from the whole of my text, and I now have a more accurate representation of that, right? So you would want to activate your speakers. You can think of these speakers almost as sub-documents, right? This is why the indentation here. Then I can filter to remove those so I can get a little bit more accurate representation here. Now, what you'll notice here in the top, there are some different colors here. These are black and this is blue. Black, anytime in one of these menus in MaxQDA, indicates that that is a system generated column or piece of data. What that means is it's created by MaxQDA, and this is generated from the actual text, right? And I cannot change those, and you shouldn't change those because those are from the text, right? You want those to remain consistent and constant. The blue values, genre and gender, those are user generated. I have created those. And so those can be changed. And so you'll have probably a mixture of these in your sample. And what's nice about this is you can use these later as activation criteria. So rather than picking a specific speaker, I could say all speakers that are from comic books or all speakers that are from fantasy. And I can easily grab certain things. And so you'll want to think about that. This is one of those things where it's nice to know what's capable before you collect the data, because it allows you to plan. What questions should I ask in my survey screeners? Should I do a survey screener? And so this will allow you to sort of manipulate the data a little bit more in a little bit more complicated ways. Note over here too, you can also export these out to Excel or S tables and things like that. You can also represent this data in the form of a table or in the form of a bar chart. So contributions, it might be, for example, gender might be a little bit more interesting here. If you're a big fan of The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, um, Sauron is kind of an interesting character. So if I go to genre, for example, this might be an interesting field. Now you can see I have 4 speakers from comic books, 1 from fantasy and 1 from sci-fi. So I can get kind of some quick and dirty visualizations of my sample. All right, so this is a good way to get a quick overview of your data. To show you how to do variables, it's a 2-step process. First, I need to create the variable, and then I need to assign a value to the variable. So to create the variable, I go to my list of variables, right? And this is going to show the 2 user-generated variables I have. And I'll just come to this option to add a new variable. And of course, the dialog box is on my other screen. We'll just call this demo variable. Note that you can change the type as well, text, integer, decimal, date, Boolean, all those kinds of things. Most of the time you can change this around. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. There's a certain way if you set it initially as 1, you can't change it. Check out the manual on that for the specifics there. But if we just created this as a text, you'll see it adds a new line to my list of variables. If I go back now and I have a new column, I have a new column for demo variable. And to add the values, I would just double click into this field and we'll just make it a yes and a no, right? And you'll see that'll populate, right? And so I can fill in those values. If you have done this via Excel, you can also pull in your variable values as Excel. So if I come back over to my list of variables, it's possible to import those here so that you don't right here import data. So if you have already, let's say you've issued a survey screener and you have all that data collected in an Excel file, you can just import this into your project file. So it saves you that key. The only thing that you need is this speaker group, speaker and focus group. So that these are the key values the MaxQDA will use to locate that data. So the easiest way to make sure that you're correct is to first export this table, right? Export this as an Excel table, then take your data and just add it on. So you've got 2 or 3 columns on the left, and you're going to append everything, and you're going to make a nice wide table. And then you'll come back to your list of variables, and you can import that data, and you can add it all here. That way you don't have to do any of the manual work. Save yourself some time and some of that tedious scut work that nobody really wants to do. All right. So that takes us through most of the basics here. Let's go back up to my slides. Yeah, that gets us to the overview, the transcript format and import, the overview, colors, variables, and contributions. So we've seen that. I want to take you through some of this preliminary coding and annotation here. So let's bring up my focus group transcript. You'll see what I've done here in my code system. If we go back to my summary, share the unique perspectives. Discussion begins with the debate on color scheme. So that's topic 1. Topic then shifts to the utility versus style. That's topic 2. And then let's see, debate the merits of design such as maintenance and durability, right? And so we have our main topics available to us, the questions that we've asked. And I specified that in the prompt to specific topics. So I've got topic 1, color, topic 2, utility versus style, and topic 3, accessories and gadgets. And so you'll see those here. Topic 1. And topic 1 encompasses all this text with multiple speakers involved, right? There's back and forth here. It's asking speakers, and then there's replies between speakers. We got my moderator here. Moving on to our next topic, right? And I have my second topic here, utility versus style. You get the idea. I've taken my data and I've just sliced it into 3 topics. So I have the option to just read it straight through, right? I can just read line by line and I could code that way. Or I can look at it based on the level of the topic, the single questions that were asked, split out across these people. And so that's what we're going to do first. So this coding process is quite simple. You would just stick your highlighter at the beginning of the question and you would highlight until the moderator pops in. I would right click here, I'd create a new code, and it would be these. And I've organized them under discussion topics, right? So now, once I have this structure established, I've got some capability here. If I wanted to use AI Assist, I could come over to my memo for topic 1, and I could do some subcode suggestions, right? So to do that, I would right click on the code, go to AI Assist, suggest subcodes, right? And then that will give me a list of things that I could use to start processing this idea of color. So brooding elegance, chaotic flair, refined grandeur, magical superiority, dominating presence, twisted brilliance. So I have aspects of the personality of all of these characters. And this is meant to be over the top. I purposely did it that way so that these examples kind of hit you over the head. But Darth Vader, he's dark, he's dressed in black, brooding elegance. If you've ever watched the Star Wars prequels, the angst and those kinds of things that's involved there. Chaotic flair with the Joker, right? So these ideas of their opinions on color are noted here. And these are just suggestions. I can take these or leave these, right? But they're captured here in my memo. They're noted with this light blue. If I want to use them, I can use them. If I don't, I don't. So that's one way that you could begin to process this. I could also do the AI Assist. I could create some summarizations here, right? I could summarize those coded segments. This one's, I don't know if this one's so great in this context because it's all on the same topic, but I could do that this way. I could chat with these. I have a lot of options that are available to me here. What I want to show you is an initial way to start to process this. So again, focus group data has an interesting way to manipulate the data because of these focus group speakers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my visual tools. You may have seen this if you were in one of the visual tools sessions earlier today. I'm going to go to my code matrix browser. Code matrix browser shows you the distribution, right? The code distribution by document, right? Code distribution by document. But I can also use this by focus group speakers because technically these focus group speakers are considered tiny documents, right? All of their contributions are considered tiny documents. And now that I've coded along topic, I can see the relationships between the speakers and their speech on a certain topic, right? So I've chosen for my columns the focus group speakers, which will be right here. And I've chosen for my rows, actually, let's do this only for activated focus group speakers. That will exclude the moderator. And then I will use these codes in a second here. You'll see them displayed. So if I click OK, this is going to create a visualization, and I need to expand these things out. This always happens. I can actually do it this way. That kind of works. So now you see I have my speakers across the top, my 6 speakers: Darth Vader, the Joker, Magneto, Loki, Sauron, and Mysteria. Right? I've got my speakers, and I've got my codes here, which in this case, these are not like thematic codes. These are just structural codes. I'm just using these to manipulate my data. They don't really mean anything, but it's a helpful tool for me. So what I can do here, there's a couple things that are available. I can start to see some general trends. The Joker talks quite a bit on color, right? Sauron talks quite a bit on utility versus style, right? Mysteria doesn't mention anything about color. So I can start to see some basic trends. This is the quantitative view. It's a quantitative view of my qualitative analysis, right? So I can start to see a little bit of that here. What's great about these in MaxQDA is that these are hyperlinked. If I double click this, you'll see that this gets pulled up here in my retrieve segments window, right? I can see it down here. So I can do further analysis. I could create a word cloud from this. I could chat with this. I could auto code. I could print it if I wanted to put it on the wall. But it's hyperlinked is what I'm trying to say. Now, what I think is cool is not so much the code matrix browser, but the segment matrix. If I click this button, you'll see I have all my columns. I'm going to change this to 6 so I can see everybody. So I've got all my speakers listed across the top. And now if I click on color, I can see everything that they have said. Everything every speaker said about color, and I can see it in the same space. Again, a MaxQDA is a view space. I can literally see what they said here on the text. In addition to this, there's an option up here for view comments, right? And so this would allow me, you can see here's my comment. Color is more than an aesthetic preference here. It underscores the significance of the mission, right? So I can see the data. I can see the data in comparison with itself. I can see my annotations all in the same space, right? And so you could have done this in the past. You could have printed these out, you could cut them up, and you could stick them on the wall. The thing is, I can do this with like thousands of pages of text. You could do that at home, which would be kind of cool, but people might look at you a little bit crazy if you have that much paper on the wall. But the idea is that you can see things here. And then if I want to switch between topics, I just click over here in the left and all those things come up and I get to see the different responses to this text. So this is an early way for me to begin to process this data, right? I can right click on these things. I can edit comments. So I can annotate. I can summarize these with AI Assist, right? I could add a weight to this if I wanted to, basically talking about the significance or the how good of an example it is. There's a lot of options that are available to me in this view space, right? I also have memos that are available to me here, so um, I can start to write more broadly about the topic itself, right? The difference between a comment and a memo being more space. A memo is unlimited amount of text. I can put as much there as I want to, whereas a comment is limited to 511 characters and it's attached to the specific coded segment. So a memo in this case is more of a global element. It's connected to this whole code, right? So what I hope that you see from this is the ability to with focus group data is the ability to really manipulate the data in a lot of interesting ways. Once I have some more thematic codes, right? Once I have some more thematic codes done, I could also activate single speakers, right? I could activate Darth Vader, and then I could have a topic down here, some kind of theme, right? Um, Frustration or something like that. And I could see only Darth Vader's mentions of frustration, right? So I can have some interesting combinations of data. You can also, of course, if I want to retrieve a whole person's segments, I can activate the focus group, and then I could activate a single speaker. Here I can see all 9 of the Joker's contributions. And I did that actually down here with this one. I created a summary of these suggestions. You can see I did one as bullet points and one in paragraph form, where I can get a summary of the individual speaker. So I can get a sense of their contribution sort of as a whole. So the idea here is that you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you activate. Activation is really like the core key logic in MaxQDA, and importing as a focus group gives you a lot more functionality there, which is why it's really important to make sure that your transcript is correct and that you use the correct import options. But I'm right at about 32 minutes, so I'm going to stop here with my content, and I'm going to see what questions that we have. All right, let me minimize that. So first question, can we upload a recording to MaxQDA instead of a transcript? Absolutely. Yes, you can do that. When you import, you would go through focus group. Basically what you would do, so if you had an audio or video, you would essentially drag that into MaxQDA, and you're going to get a prompt. And it's going to ask you, would you like to transcribe this? And you can say yes if you need the transcription and you have transcription time. And then it will give you the text. And that would allow you then to have the text and the video. They'll be linked together. And if it didn't get imported correctly, remember you still have this option here to convert text to focus group transcript. So you could always change it after the fact. So yeah, you can use the MaxQDA transcription, or you can use your own if you have one. You'll note that we have a lot of API with different options that are available. You know, if you do this virtually over Zoom or Teams and you have the premium, you can use those options, or you can use MaxQDA transcription as well. One thing to keep in mind there is that there's a lot of limitations with transcription if you have multi-language transcripts. I think MaxQDA, the only one that's multi-language is English and Spanish at the moment. But otherwise, it's going to try as hard. The AI is going to try as hard as it can to make the English into whatever language you pick, right? So that's kind of what happens there. It'll just work and work and work, and it'll never get there because it can't do it. Hopefully that answers the question. Could you discuss the weight feature and how we might use this later on in our analysis? Thank you. Sure. So when you code, let's see, I've got this one for color. If I right click this, it'll ask me to modify weight, right? And I open this up, it's going to give me an option. Weight can be used in a lot of ways. If you're doing collaborative analysis, you can use weight to indicate sort of how sure you are, right? A stronger weight would indicate I'm 100% sure this is this topic or the theme or idea. A lesser weight would indicate less certainty. Or if you were looking at examples of things, a higher weight would indicate a purer, more precise example. And what you can do then with weight, let's just set a weight here. Let's say that this is 80. Set this at 80. Let me get rid of that toolbar. Shoot, that won't go away. Sorry. Once I have the weight, I can activate in a sort of certain way, right? What should I put that on? Topic one color. So as I start to activate things, let's see here. If I go, for example, to my overview of coded segments, I can add in my weight score, and you'll see I have this weight score here. And what I would be able to do is, this isn't a great example because I only have the one code, but I can sort this, I can filter this, right? So I could sort this in, if I did this in descending order, I would have all of my weakest examples first, and I could go through and decide, does this actually belong here? Or maybe it's better someplace else. Or if I'm having a discussion with my team member, I could pull up those instances where the weight score was low, and we could talk about it. And we could say, this code doesn't make sense here, or this actually does make sense here. And so it's a discussion piece, essentially. Hopefully that answers your question. I already uploaded my focus groups and coded them. Is there a way to merge a newly uploaded one with the name stamps in the already coded document? Potentially. I would have to see things to be able to tell you exactly. But what you could probably do, under the Home tab, there's the option for export teamwork. And so you could export the teamwork for that coded transcript, and then you could import that into the uncoded transcript. So you could potentially do it that way. But that's, I would have to see the transcript and sort of how things are arranged to give you a definite answer. But you could definitely try it that way. Yeah, I saw you had your hand up, Sandra. Did you have a question or need something?
No, so sorry. That was by an
Oh,
accident. I was managing something else. Just continue.
okay. No worries, no worries. Somebody asked in the chat, is it also possible to import? Oh, it is also, never mind. That wasn't a question. That was a comment. Yes, it is also possible to use SPSS. Is there voice sensitive transcription for focus group conversation? Voice sensitive transcription. Are you meaning like that it captures inflection and things like that? Is that the question? I'm not exactly sure what you mean there. I'm sure that there is. I don't know that the Max QDA transcription does that in terms of any of those notations, but I'm sure that there probably is a third-party software out there that might do something like that. I will say from an editing standpoint, Max QDA has a text editor in it where you can change this on and off. So you could add some of that manually in your transcript after it's imported if you wanted to do that. You could add some of that notation, or you could use maybe your code system to reflect some of that. But I don't know of one off the top of my head that does anything like that. All right. I think that's most of the questions, unless I'm missing anything. Any other questions people had? Even if you don't have one about focus group transcripts, we've still got like 4 minutes left. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, we still have some time left. I also don't really see any other questions. We can wait for um, a minute or two more to see if anything else comes up. But yeah, other than
Absolutely.
that, I do not see any other questions that have not been answered.
Okay. So if you do have questions, go ahead and ask them. Let me see if there's anything else that I could show you here. Let me go back to the variables option and speaker variables. So again, on the list of, I just wanted to go through that process again. So if you had data in a spreadsheet, how to get that out, because sometimes this confuses folks. You would come to your list of variables and you would export this, right? And I would get an Excel spreadsheet from this, and then I would take my data and I would paste it into that spreadsheet, right? Then I go back into my data editor, and then I can import the data here, right? So I can pull in the data. This is really helpful if you have the forethought to collect the data in a spreadsheet or a Qualtrics survey or something like that. Will save you a lot of time. So definitely know how to do that. Can be helpful. All right. I don't think I have anything else I can really demonstrate effectively in 2 minutes. So unless anybody else has any other questions.